What up, my homies? It's week 25. Welcome back to a garden named Bill. That's a stupid intro. Anyways, week 25, like I said, and we're in this corner. And what do you notice right away? The first mammoth sunflower that we had is cut down. That's right. I cut it down and I took off all of the delicious sunflower seeds and I soaked them in a brine and I roasted them, and they're really fantastic. It was so enjoyable that I made a video of it. Feel free to check that out here when you're done with this. Anyways, surprising amount of things going on in the garden. For example, I have Easter lilies blooming. They opened up on the autumnal equinox and other things. So let's go to your overview shot. I don't really want to do the work today. I don't really want to do the work today. I don't really want to do the work today. I don't want to do the work today. Da 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 da. Hey, while we're here, Easter lilies. What a ridiculous thing. I planted a couple different Easter lilies all throughout the garden, and here this is. Pretty beautiful, actually. Got two things that I want to do for the week ahead. First off, these onions need to be thinned out, and I want to put my garlic in the ground. We're having temperatures that range from the low 60s up through the 70s with, this is what we in Wisconsin call our second summer. It's like this end wave of humidity and heat, and it's a great time to do transplanting and also garlic, this kind of stuff that you just put in the ground to overwinter for the next year. So, thinning and garlic in this chunk, and then I did build the 2 extra raised beds, which we'll see a little bit later on, and I may get around to filling them. It depends on the status of having a wheelbarrow at my house. Otherwise, I've been filling up one of the raised beds with just compost, essentially. Like when I cut down that sunflower, I just chopped it up and I put it at the bottom of the raised bed instead of taking it around to the side yard to actually put it in the compost pile, since I figure I'm going to put soil on top of that anyways and it's just going to decompose, so why not? The rest of these raised beds I put rotting logs in, and that worked really well. But what I'm planning on putting in these raised beds over here in the future, things like carrots and potatoes and such, I really want as much space straight down, especially in the middle, for them to go as possible. So yeah, I guess the task in this case is not to completely fill up those beds, but to continue adding garden refuse to them, right? Well, we'll start off our highlights from the exact same spot because I don't want to move. Here's the zucchini plant. Doesn't it look spectacular? Is it in frame? Yes, it is. I've got 4 buds on it right now, and I think I'm actually going to get some proper zucchini plants out of this, which is wonderful. There's not a single sign of squash bugs on it, which when the first zucchini plant was this size in the spring, it was, I mean, brown all over and just littered with zucchini or with squash bugs. So fingers crossed we'll avoid that situation. And I've got powdery mildew setting into my spaghetti squash that hasn't necessarily jumped over here. Maybe some spots here, but I'm really not too worried about it. All right, so the camera is now where I just was sitting, looking out over the zucchini plant. Tomatoes, spectacular. I've canned a couple different things of sauce. And what am I making for supper tomorrow night? I'm making a pasta, you know, with like rigatoni and some tomatoes in. So still using a lot of fresh tomatoes, which is way better than I've been in past years. And these pepper plants behind me, I'm getting new buds on them. Don't expect much from them. It's just been such a disappointing year for peppers. But in this frame you can see I've got several different sunflowers that are drooping over. The time to harvest them is when they droop, obviously, and the petals are dry and crunchy. Like you can take them and pinch them between your fingers and they just crumble. So these aren't entirely there yet, but man, that was so satisfying to do. What is here, though, are some of the cantaloupes and the squash. So for supper 2 nights ago, I cooked some chicken quarters in squash, and I had a small butternut squash and a small coconut squash that I just came out here and went, and I, skinned them and I cubed them and I put it all in a roaster and I just cooked it at 450 for half an hour
with a little bit of oil, salt, pepper, and sage. It was super. I really, really liked it. So I'm not going to get as many squash as I did last year, but it looks pretty, especially now that I finally have some things crawling over the top of the arch. It looks very attractive from inside the house. So we're still getting stuff off of that. And out of frame, but over here, I'm not going to show you, it's where the beans are, and they have all withered pretty thin. They're not producing anymore, even though I'm pulling off the beans, and all of the leaves are starting to go away from the bottom up. So really it's just the last, like, from 6 foot and then over the arch that still has some leaves. It's kind of strange looking, but I don't want to pull that section out yet because I have morning glories in there, kind of interspersed, and it's beautiful to see like a batch of morning glories open up every morning. So we'll just let that go until the first frost. This year is one for the record books for where raspberries are concerned. They're pretty much done now. Anything that's left is small and really not satisfying looking. So I could probably come out and spend an hour picking, and I doubt I'd probably get 800 grams. We had this peak where for an entire week I would come out every 2 or 3 days and I would pick about 1,800 grams, which is, I mean, that's a ton. It's like 2 kilos, like 4 pounds every 2 or 3 days. And then that peak hit, and then it came out to being like 1 kilo every 3 or 4 days, and now it's next to you know, just a shadow of that. What I really need to do, and I don't think I will until October, after the frost, is trim these raspberries. So I've been watching my garden tours from this time last year. They were pretty thin, few and far between, but I said at that time that I wanted to trim up the gooseberry and trim up the raspberries before closing up the garden. I will do that this year. Not the gooseberry. The gooseberry gets trimmed in the spring. But I need to control this hedge. It's gotten a little too unruly. So that's an aesthetic important thing that's ahead. I froze 3 kilos of raspberries and 1 kilo of rhubarb, and now we got apples. So it's time to make some more jam, which is just wonderful. And of course we ate just tons of fresh raspberries. Love it. Love, 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 love it. So this is the main work highlight from last week. I did finally build these 2 last raised beds. This is where the corn was this year, and some of the sunflowers early on. These are 8 foot by 3 foot. My 4 main beds are 12 foot by 3 foot. I continued the spacing similar to what I had before. It's 2 feet between here and about 2 feet. It just kind of worked that I had a little bit of extra space back there to walk around for harvesting next year, which is great. And this space between the last original raised bed and this one is just over 3 feet. I paralleled the walking space that I have between the arch trellis. So essentially next year, well, and right now, I can take the wheelbarrow down there, and I can take the wheelbarrow here up to the red work potting bench, and that'll be kind of like my main highway. And then I can walk in between the rest of it. Technically I can get the wheelbarrow in this 2 foot space, but it is tough to turn it kind of on a dime when it comes to those 2 foot narrow corners, particularly when everything is in full bloom. But I think if I keep this 3 foot space, I can at least bring a wheelbarrow in, park it, and then haul and do my business. You'll notice that I also put my 3, barrels here, my half barrels. They used to be kind of going in this direction over here. They're going to be going perpendicular to the sun now, and then next year I'll have another row of 3 right next to them. So it's really increasing the amount of space that I'm using. You know what I mean? Much less wasted space, and I'm having more permanent dedicated things, it seems, in these barrels. Like this is mint, and it really took to this, and I don't think I'm ever going to get rid of it because it's pretty and I'm finding more uses for it. I've got blueberries in the barrel behind you, so that's going to be in this space next year, and I'll probably get another blueberry plant if this overwinters well, and a few other things. But yeah, this is a big work highlight. So I'm pleased that I finally took care of it. So it's a good time in the garden. It's squash season. I was watching some etymology videos for what the seasons used to be called, and in Old English, autumn was just harvest for a couple hundred years. So that makes sense. Welcome to harvest season. Over the next month, I will get rid of all the squash. The tomatoes will be done, and I will mulch the beds. So we're really just kind of coming to the end. What do you got growing with you? For those in a warmer climate than my zone 5A, I'm sure you still have much of your fall garden ahead of you for probably 2 full months or so, which is very exciting. I'm quite envious. But at the same time, I'm looking forward to that catharsis of the end of the season. You know, once our second summer goes through and the humidity is done, we get this nice cold snap, and it's like 50 degrees on average every day, and I love that. And that to me is like a natural signal to say, okay, you're done with gardening, now start making Christmas gifts in your workshop. So we're approaching that point. Still work to be done before then, but that's where my mind is going. Thanks for watching, and yeah, check out that sunflower how to harvest and roast and save seeds video, or whatever the title's going to be. Okay, see you next week. Bye-bye.